We reverse the damage. Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Grace to Power. My name is Mohammed Saleh. And on the show today, the countdown to elect the next Vice President of India is on. And the ruling NDA alliance and also the opposition India alliance have both fielded their respective candidates. And in the United States, the Texas legislature has approved a highly controversial new electoral map. A move the Republicans claim will actually help secure the Republicans a majority in the House. But let's, of course, start with what is happening in India, where the stage is set for India's vice presidential elections. The opposition and the ruling party candidates have filed their nominations, and the race is shaping up to be a pretty high-stakes South versus South contest. The ruling NDA alliance has now fielded the Tamil Nadu-born Maharashtra governor C.P. Radhakrishnan. And the opposition India bloc has nominated the Telangana-born, the former Supreme Court judge R.B. Sudarshan Reddy. Now, earlier in the day, the Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge, Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi stood alongside Justice Reddy as he filed his nominations. Meanwhile, C.P. Radhakrishnan was flanked by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah and a battery of senior NDA leaders as he filed his nomination papers. The battle has left some political parties puzzled. For two very different parties in ruling and opposition alliance, the choice is between son of the soil and alliance candidate. Now, the NDA's pick of a Tamil leader, Radhakrishnan, has put the Tamil regional outfit DMK in a pretty tight spot. In response, the India bloc has turned to Reddy from Telangana, creating a dilemma for the Telugu Desam party. Meanwhile, the ruling NDA alliance has started poaching the opposition parties to vote for Radhakrishnan. The Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis have called the Shiv Sena chief Uddhav Thackeray seeking support for the NDA candidate. So as voting for the Vice President is done using a secret ballot, individual members of the Parliament are free to vote for the candidate that they wish to choose. And that creates a certain level of uncertainty when it comes to the outcome of these elections. If the voting happens strictly on party lines, then the NDA edges ahead of the India bloc in Electoral College. The combined strength of both houses of the Indian Parliament is 781, and that sets the magic number for the vice presidential election to 391 votes. With the NDA alliance having the support of about 400 members of Parliament, the candidate that has the backing of the ruling alliance is to get elected. The opposition might have a chance in the vice presidential post only if a few members of Parliament cross-vote against the announced candidates. The vice presidential election will take place on the 9th of September and votes will be counted immediately after polling concludes. And on the same day, India will get its 17th vice president. The Indian Parliament's monsoon session ends today. During a month-long session, the Parliament was barely functional, with frequent protests from the opposition parties demanding for discussions inside the House and protests and sloganeering outside the House. Let's listen in to some of the reactions that have come from the parliamentarians on what they think about this largely washed-out monsoon session.
Very disappointing that this session has been a washout. All we wanted was a discussion on SIR. The government could have easily had the discussion and given us the space to raise our concerns and then gone about the business of the House. The government has the majority. It's really incumbent upon the government to create the atmosphere to run the House.
ये अत्यंत निंदनीय है। लोकतंत्र में विपक्ष की एक अहम भूमिका होती है और उस भूमिका का पॉजिटिव होना, सकारात्मक होना जरूरी है। आपके मतभेद हो सकते हैं जो कि पूरी तरीके से स्वीकार्य हैं। आप मतभेद को सदन के पटल पे रखिए ना, आप अपनी चिंताओं को सदन के पटल पे रखिए, पर इस तरीके से हंगामा करना और एक ऐसे आचरण का प्रदर्शन करना जो कतई स्वीकार्य नहीं हो सकता। आप लोकतंत्र में एक गलत परंपरा की शुरुआत कर रहे हैं।
तो मैं समझता हूँ पूरी तरह से सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है, जिसकी वजह से संसद जो है वो चलाना मुश्किल हो रहा है। सरकार की जिम्मेदारी होती है। सरकार विपक्षों को जब मौका ही नहीं देगी, बोलने ही नहीं देगी, तो विपक्ष क्या करेगा बताइए।
Yes, it was very disappointing that, for example, Rajya Sabha could only do 38% productivity, which is way less than the expected. We are deeply disappointed, but we hope at least the coming sessions will be much more functional.
देश के लिए और सरकार की दृष्टि से बहुत ही फ्रूटफुल सेशन रहा है। ये मॉनसून सत्र बहुत उपयोगी सत्र रहा है, लेकिन अपोजिशन एमपीज के लिए बहुत नुकसान रहा है।
All right, let's now shift our attention to the United States, where the U.S. midterm election battle is heating up as the Texas legislature has approved a highly contentious new electoral map. And this move, the Republicans claim, will actually help secure the Republicans a majority in the House. The vote came after weeks of political drama. More than 50 Texas Democrats had fled the state earlier this month to block the plan, bringing legislative business to a halt. They returned this week, allowing the Republicans to push the map through.
88 ayes and 52 nays. House Bill 4 is finally passed.
The measure was finally passed in the state's lower chamber by 88 votes to 52, creating 5 new Republican-friendly districts. Now, Trump immediately celebrated the move on his Truth Social platform, calling it a big win. He also suggested that other states like Florida and Indiana could follow the lead. The Texas maneuver has already triggered a retaliation while denouncing the Texas redistricting as a violation of the Voting Rights Act and the Constitution. The Democrats in California have introduced bills to create a referendum for a new congressional map that would counteract Texas. The Governor Gavin Newsom has vowed to fight fire with fire. New York's Governor Kathy Hochul went further, calling Texas's redistricting plan to be a legal insurrection. In the United States, individual states have the power to redraw their districts, usually once a decade after the census. But the Republicans are now pushing mid-decade map changes in places such as Ohio, Missouri, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Florida. The stakes could not be higher for the American president. If the Democrats flip just a handful of the seats nationwide, then his party could lose control of the House. As both parties accuse each other of playing hardball, the redistricting battle in Texas may signal the opening of a much larger map-drawing war across the United States of America. All right, now joining us from New York is our correspondent Susan Tehrani. She's joining us with more details. Susan, this is an interesting exercise with far-reaching political ramifications. Give us a sense, what the Republicans have tried to accomplish by redrawing and redistricting this map, and how do the Democrats intend to respond?
Right. So the Republicans saw an opening in Texas. They said because President Trump won so overwhelmingly with minority voters and black voters in Texas that now the maps, it's a good time for the maps to be redrawn. Texas's constitution allows legislators to change redistricting maps. They can do it every decade. They can do it every mid-decade. States like California, however, which I think we'll be focusing on in the next couple of days because Texas seems to be over and done with. California, a Democrat state, in 2011, the voters voted for an independent commission to redraw these districting maps. An overwhelming majority of Californians thought that the legislators weren't fit to do that. Now, Gavin Newsom, after seeing Texas, wants to change California's constitution, put that change of constitution for the voters in a special election, and try to draw the map once again in California, which would not only give 5 blue seats that they got taken away in Texas, but possibly an additional 4 to the Democrats. So as you can see, this is something that both parties have been very actively doing. Actually, last year here in New York, Kathy Hochul, as you mentioned, which is a Democrat-run state, she went ahead with mid-decade redistricting. She had an election herself coming up. So,
Right.
you know, while it's not common, but you see that once one state goes, then the other states are very worried and they follow. And this could turn into a whole battle across the United States.
Indeed, we'll have to see as to how it plays out. Everything, as they say, is fair in love, war, and possibly now even in elections. Thank you very much indeed, Susan Tehrani, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you.
All right, now anger spilled on the streets of Washington, D.C. against President Donald Trump's move to deploy the National Guard in the city. The protesters, in fact, booed the American Vice President J.D. Vance and the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. About 800 troops have been mobilized on the streets of D.C. on the orders of the American president. In the latest flashpoint, J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth were booed during a hamburger handout event to the National Guard troops deployed in D.C. Demonstrators, in fact, raised slogans saying that it is important to free D.C. And apart from J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth, the crowd also directed their boos towards the senior Trump advisor Stephen Miller. But J.D. Vance brushed off the criticism. He called the protesters to be simply crazy.
And I think you hear these guys outside here screaming at us. Of course, these are a bunch of crazy protesters. But I'll tell you, a couple of years ago when I brought my kids here, they were being screamed at by violent vagrants, and it was scaring the hell out of my kids.
Now, Stephen Miller struck a sharper tone, ridiculing the demonstrators as crazy communists and stupid white hippies.
So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies that all need to go home and take a nap because they're all over 90 years old, and we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people and the citizens of Washington, D.C.
But protesters have continued to protest outside the Union Station, calling the troop presence to be a clear case of an occupation of the United States Capitol.
So we're here to say, from D.C. to Palestine, we are on the side of the people. We want occupation of no communities, and we want to be investing in the very things that make communities thrive, and it's not more military.
An estimated 1,900 National Guard troops are now deployed across the capital. More than half of them come from the Republican-led states, including from places such as Mississippi, Louisiana, and South Carolina. Meanwhile, the local and the federal administration are at loggerheads on crime data in D.C. Official statistics show violent crime in D.C. is at a 30-year low. Now, homicides remain high compared to other big U.S. cities. But far from the lawless image the president paints, the Justice Department has opened an investigation looking into whether the city manipulated the crime data. After universities and schools, museums are next on the American president's list in what Donald Trump is calling his goal of making institutions less woke. The Republican leader has now gone on a tirade against the Smithsonian museums for too much focus on the negative aspects of slavery in American history. In a social media post, President Donald Trump said that he has now ordered his attorneys to conduct a review of the Smithsonian museums. Trump's post slammed the Smithsonian Museum for focusing on the American history of slavery. That has now drawn ire on social media, with many interpreting it as him downplaying one of America's darkest chapters. Now, officials began conducting a review of the exhibits of the Smithsonian last week, and Trump also hinted that he'll pressure the institution to accept his demands, just like he did with colleges and universities, but threatening to cut federal funding. A substantial part of funding for the Smithsonian comes from the federal government. However, it could now become a major pressure point, as Trump is attempting to remove the unwanted narratives from cultural institutions, as he describes it. It appears that the Smithsonian museums are not a lone target. According to reports, the Washington-based institution is in fact the beginning of a much more expansive review of museums across the United States. Now, U.S. museums have come under review ahead of the 250th anniversary of the country. While slavery has been an important and a very crucial chapter of American history, the current administration is critical of what it is calling as too much focus on the negative aspects of slavery in American history. Now, Pakistan's Supreme Court has granted major relief to the jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan in a slew of cases related to violence on the 9th of May 2023. A three-member bench of Pakistan's top court has now granted bail to the PTI party founder after hearing the latest round of the arguments from the prosecutor and defense. Imran Khan's supporters were seen celebrating at the court complex when the order was delivered. Imran Khan's sister, Noreen Khan, welcomed the move and hoped for the jail leader's freedom.
It was a false and baseless case. God has put an end to it. Bail has been granted. God willing, it will be completely eradicated.
The PTI supporters also shared videos with Imran's other sister, Alima Khan, soon after the Supreme Court granted bail to the party's founder. While the bail order is a major win for the jailed former Prime Minister, Imran Khan will remain in jail in connection to the graft charges in the £190 million Al-Khadir Trust case. The PTI leaders had hoped that a bail verdict in the final case will set Imran Khan free. The PTI founder has been in jail since August 2023. On the other hand, there are other leaders of the now dismantled PTI with warrants against them, and Pakistan's Special Anti-Terror Court has issued non-bailable arrest warrants against 14 accused. The list includes senior party leaders such as Zartaj Gul and Omar Ayub. Authorities have ordered for both leaders to be present in court on the 3rd of September in connection with about 12 cases of the 2023 9th of May violence. According to reports, the courts have issued the non-bailable warrant after prosecutors said that all 14 of the accused had been convicted in courts of Faisalabad and Lahore, but have been absconding. The Myanmar's military junta has set the ball rolling on national elections. Details of the long-awaited elections plan that are now out. The phase-wise voting will start from the 28th of December, and the junta claims that the election will bring stability after 3 years of bloody conflict triggered post-2021 coup. The first round will cover 102 of Myanmar's 330 townships, including all of Naypyidaw, the sprawling military-built capital. But in regions where the military faces some heavy resistance, voting will be far more limited. The polls will cover only about a third of the country's townships, reflecting the reality of a nation that is still engulfed in a civil war. Now, the junta has not announced dates for subsequent phases or areas that will be included. But for those who oppose the elections, the military government has announced punishment of up to 10 years in prison. Now, Myanmar's last general election in 2020 had delivered a landslide to Aung San Suu Kyi's party. The military ousted her government months later, claiming voter fraud without evidence. She remains in jail to this day. In Argentina, the bill on the disability reforms finds itself at the center of a political rift between President Javier Milei's congressional lawmakers. There is a tit-for-tat power tussle that is ongoing. On Wednesday, the lawmakers from Argentina's lower house of Congress voted to overturn Milei's veto against a bill which allowed increased allowances for the disabled. Protesters, in fact, gathered outside of the parliament as voting process began.
The country has always acted, and we always had a government present for each and every inhabitant of the Republic of Argentina, because the cruelty he has today towards people with disabilities and retirees are the two most vulnerable sectors of society. These are the people he is turning his back on today, fighting a child with autism. That tells you the kind of person he is.
Now, Congress had approved the law in July this year, but the Argentine president vetoed it, triggering protests across the country. But Milei did not just veto one reform through presidential veto powers. Now, Javier Milei has also put on hold a proposed pension hike for the elderly. However, the pension veto has stayed, with the Argentine deputies voting in favor of the veto on the law that had proposed a 7.2% increase in pensions. Now, 160 voted in favor of Milei's veto, 83 lawmakers voted against, and 6 leaders abstained. The move has drawn intense criticism from many in Argentina, especially the pensioners whose financial support is on the line.
They've always paid miserable wages, and now it's even worse because now the situation is like that for everyone. But there was always a strong wave of resistance from the retirees, and I joined in because something had to be done. At the very least, speak out, go out, and encourage people to wake up.
In Brazil, the heat is increasing in the former President Jair Bolsonaro amidst the ongoing coup trial against him. On Wednesday, Brazil's police accused Jair Bolsonaro and his son Eduardo of meddling with the ongoing court case and called for the father-son duo to be charged with obstruction of justice. In a written report that was shared with the court, officials have now called for 2 additional charges against Jair Bolsonaro and his U.S. based on the first on coercion in the judicial process and secondly on the abolition of the democratic law. The police officials have said that the former president facing trial also plans to seek asylum in Argentina. And these accusations surfaced for the alleged escape plans from last year. The police say that they found a 33-page draft asylum request on Bolsonaro's phone, which was allegedly addressed to the Argentinian right-wing president Javier Milei. Jair Bolsonaro has been under house arrest since early August last year, and the former president is now facing trial for plotting a coup in 2022 and is attempting to overthrow his democratically elected successor, Lula da Silva. However, the accused leader has repeatedly said that he's in fact a victim of political persecution. And Brazil's court will now begin deliberations on the trial from the 2nd of September. If convicted, Bolsonaro faces up to 40 years in prison. Additionally, if the court agrees to obstruction of justice charges urged by the police, then the former leader could in fact face an additional 12 years in prison. Thailand's suspended Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra appeared in court to testify in a high-stakes case that could potentially see her removed from office. The charges stem from her handling of a sensitive border dispute with Cambodia, particularly a leaked phone call in which she addressed Cambodia's former leader, Hun Sen, as uncle and referred to a Thai military commander as her opponent. The call sparked outrage in Thailand and has led to accusations that Paetongtarn Shinawatra had failed to uphold her duties and had undermined the powerful military establishment. The Petong Taran, the 39-year-old daughter of the controversial billionaire ex-premier Thaksin Shinawatra, faced questions for over an hour and a half in front of the Constitutional Court, which suspended her last month. Now, despite the seriousness of the proceedings, the court rules prohibit the media from reporting on the details from the hearing. The case has deeply divided Thai politics. Conservative lawmakers have condemned her conduct, with one key coalition partner walking out in protest, nearly toppling her government. Meanwhile, the acting Prime Minister, Phumtham Wechayachai, defended her, saying that she believes that she acted in good faith to prevent conflict. The phone call not only rocked domestic politics but has also worsened the Thai-Cambodian relations, triggering the deadliest clashes along their border in decades. Over 40 people have died and hundreds of thousands were displaced in the ensuing conflict. So if the court rules against her, then Petong Taran would become the third member of the Shinawatra family to be ousted from the premiership, joining her father Thaksin and aunt, adding to the drama. Petong Taran's father Thaksin Shinawatra faces his own critical legal moment this Friday, when a verdict is expected in the Les Majestés trial, charges that could potentially see him get jailed for up to 15 years. And with that, a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. This is Mohammed Saleh signing off. Thanks for watching.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yowon.com.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles,